you're just joining, again, I'm Michelle Platt. I'm from Mendota Heights, Minnesota, the Brightmont Academy campus there. Jenny is about half an hour away from me, and she is a campus director in Plymouth, Minnesota. And then Dr. Hansen Cohen is in Edina, Minnesota. And today we're talking about sleep. And Dr. Hansen Cohen has a private practice. She also runs a co-working space, the first one for mental health professionals. And then she also has a podcast. It's yourbirthday.podcast.com, all about empowering women. We'll put links to everything there. And if I left out anything, Dr. Hansen Cohen, you can correct me or fill in the blanks, tell us a little bit more about yourself. And so, we're all transitioning back to school. Some of you may have been in school, for a while. Sleep is definitely an issue we hear at Brightmont, and I'm sure Dr. Hansen Cohen has to deal with this issue on a regular basis. So we thought it's better to bring in an expert to speak about that today. So let's get started.
Well, thank you, Jenny and Michelle, first of all. And yes, sleep is hard. It's hard for adults, it's hard for kids. And so before we get started, I just want to go over that the presentation will be about 50 minutes of content and then 10 minutes for question and answer. But obviously, pop your questions in as you see fit. I'm totally fine with that. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, stay on the slide for just 1 second. Just so people are aware, the hyperlinks that you see, the home, about the doc, contact, um, and then my website are all hyperlinks. So you're able to link on those as you need to. Let's go to the next slide. This is a little bit about me. Michelle did a great job just sharing a bit of my history. I am a PsyPact provider, so I practice in about 40 plus states. It's always evolving as more states approve PsyPact. So I see people kind of all over the country, which is really fun. I do primarily focus on anxiety, ADHD, autism, trauma, and life transition, including evaluations and therapy. I am trained in trauma treatment and cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as crisis counseling. My background is primarily focused on child psychology, health psychology, and then forensic psychology, so court-ordered evaluations. I do have a practice in Florida, and then I have the practices you all discussed here in Minnesota. I'm an entrepreneur by training. I love the idea of new businesses and new concepts. It really gets me excited. So I do have, like I said, 3 successful companies in addition to one company that I co-own, which is the Empowerment of Women podcast. So I love community-minded, hive-minded people. That's my jam. And I love partnering with schools, families, other businesses. I have partnered with hospitals, just so that we can get mental health awareness out there is super important to me. So that's a bit about me. Next slide. So today we're going to talk about sleep, and I really want everyone to think of sleep as kind of a software update for our brains. You know, when our phones shut off at night and they do the updates, and we wake up in the morning confused, or for me this week, it's been Zoom deciding to do a million updates. Sleep essentially does that for our brain. And I don't want us to shut it off, like we love to do with updates. It's very important. And the reality is, if we don't have sleep, slowly our brain starts running slower, not functioning well, and crashing. If we can all maybe go back to when our children were infants, that first year of life, and we can think back as to how hard some days it was to function with the lack of sleep. And I remember myself being pregnant thinking it was the scariest time of my life at the thought of losing sleep. I actually was not scared at all about delivery. I wasn't scared about bringing this person home. I was scared of losing out on sleep. I don't know about you, but that was huge to me because before children, I was a chronic 8-hour girl. After children, I now function on like 5 or 6 hours, which is terrible, but truthful. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a realist here. And I push my kids for better than me. Because I want them to do better than me. Like, right? We all want our kids to do better than we have done in life. And this is one of those moments. So when we look at ourselves functioning not well with sleep, we have to also realize our kids are the same. They're just as human as we are. Next slide. As we've defined, here's what we are going to talk about. We're going to start with the learning goals, why sleep matters, what are the big things that disrupt sleep for kids, and then I'm going to share with you what sleep hygiene is. We're all really familiar with physical hygiene, right? Showering, taking care of our bodies, things like that. But I'm going to talk about sleep hygiene and how important it is. And then how can you help your children? And understanding that research actually shows that sleep is one of the major key components to kids succeeding academically, like at in the top 5. So it's huge. Again, I come to you in this presentation as a real parent as well as a licensed psychologist. I have children of my own. I know how hard some of these things can be. So I really want you to see this as somebody coming alongside you, not somebody sitting at a podium lecturing you or judging you. Like we are all real in this together. Okay, next slide. Okay, so our goals today are to understand why sleep matters, identifying the disruptors, and then learning simple, practical steps that we all can take home. And then, as has been given in the email as well as in the chat, if you all go to the chat, you'll see the handout there too. You've got a one-page toolkit that will help you in having conversations with your kids, kind of figuring out what you want to do at home to improve sleep for everyone in your house. Next one. So, how much sleep is really needed? These are the standards put out by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they recommend that kids age 6 to 12 get 9 to 12 hours of sleep, and teens get 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Take a deep breath. If you're ready to shut down right now and shut off, I get you. Because how many of your kids have activities? How many of your kids are doing things? Or maybe you're working till 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night like me. I get it. It is hard. This is impossible. Again, this is recommended. If you can push towards 8 to 9 hours, great. If you can't, I'm also realistic with you. Okay. I have a daughter who's in dance till 8:30 at night. So, the thought of her getting at 11 years old 12 hours of sleep feels impossible. Um, and life happens. We all know that teens like to stay up till midnight and get up at 6 a.m. The best that we can do sometimes is push them till 10 p.m. And I'm real with you. And there's nights that they're working on a late project until who knows what hour. We all have those moments with our teenagers. I get it. And, I share these with you so that you know what the guidelines are and what the expectation is. And if you can encourage your child or create a routine for your child to get roughly within this range, that's awesome. Okay, so it's a moment of encouragement, not a moment to shut you down. Next slide. What does the research say about sleep? This is huge. I'm always tracking the research on sleep, probably internally hoping that they'll eventually say we can have less sleep, so I have less guilt about my sleep schedule, won't lie. But it's also a critical part in my work with kids, primarily teens. Teens really struggle with sleep. And we know that sleep not only helps us overall, but it is a major component of this frontal lobe, the executive functioning. It supports your attention, your memory, your problem solving. All of that STEM skills sits right here. And without good sleep, this part of our brain slowly shuts down. When I'm evaluating kids for ADHD or learning disorders, things like that, I really dig into sleep because it's one of those things that pretty much can get ignored. And that's especially amongst my colleagues too. Like people will be like, "How's your sleep?" You say good, they move on. I really dig into it. I say, "Tell me what it is like for you to fall asleep. What goes on in your brain? How does your brain shut down? What is it like for you throughout the night? Are you a tosser turner? Are you somebody who's sleeping in one position? Do you notice yourself waking up several times in the night? How many times do kids get up and go to the bathroom in the night? Or how many nights a week are kids coming and finding you if they're little? Um, so this is a big one for me. And I will tell you some other questions I ask along the way. But if your kid is waking up several times in the night, or your child has a hard time falling asleep, then their sleep is affected. Or if they're waking up in the morning and they're, excuse my French, dragging ass, which is what the kids call it, I want to know why. I want to know what time they went to sleep. I want to know what sleep was like for them. And I want to know kind of what their sleep environment is like. What is their bed like? I mean, it sounds crazy, but what are their sheets like? Things like that. Are there other people in their rooms? How close is their room to the main living area of the house? That's a big one. You know, if your kids go to bed earlier and you're still in the living room and they can hear you guys watching your Netflix shows, that affects their sleep. And you may not realize it, but it does. And you had no intentions to be affecting their sleep. Or, you know, I remember my mom telling me as a little girl, she would sit at the top of the stairs on the night her parents would talk about bills because she was always worried about them not having enough money. And her parents had no idea. Like, if my grandma was still here today, she would say, I had no idea. My mom said, my parents never knew I did it. But she was a worrier and anxious kid, and she was always afraid to ask her parents for things. And so she would sit by the stairs listening. And she said, my parents took about an hour to figure out their bills, their expenses. And so that's an hour of sleep she would lose every 2 weeks. And her parents had no idea. So it's okay for you to go and check if your kid is really asleep. And I still do that when I go to bed. Um, and we purposely, like, if we are going to watch a show or something like that, we do it in a room farthest away from our kids, if you're able to do that, so that they aren't disrupted by us. Um, and you know, that's time for you with your partner. I totally get that. And I'm not telling you to go to bed and not and create a silent house. I'm just telling you to be aware of your kid and how they're sleeping. The other thing I will say, and we'll get into this as far as temperature, make sure their room is cool enough for them. If you need a fan on or a white noise, that's understandable. Some kids are light sleepers, and that's good. But we know that when we really look at their sleep, and understand it, and kids are getting good sleep, not only are we improving academics, we're also improving their classroom behavior and reducing the irritability. So if you have a kid who's acting out in school, that's one of the things I'm asking about. I'm not here to assume that your kid's a behavior problem, your kid's traumatized, your kid has anxiety, your kid has ADHD. I want to also talk about sleep. Next slide. Okay, research shows us that short or regular sleep is directly correlated to lower academic outcomes and attention problems. As I shared before, it's a key question that I ask about. We also know that sleep has the opposite effect. It helps kids regulate their emotions and be calm and focused in class. Tired kids look like misbehaving kids. It's so true. I mean, think about us as adults. I don't know about you, but when I haven't had enough sleep, I'm not the nicest of humans. I'm irritable. I'm on edge. I have more propensity to assume that somebody said something to hurt my feelings when it was never their intention or anything that they did. But I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like I I'm not functioning well, I'm not doing well, things like that. And kids are no different. That's what I would say. They're no different. They feel the same way we do. Um, and so, you know, if you're seeing your kiddo come home too, and they're more irritable with you and they're short with you, and you're like, evenings stink with my child, one of the first things to honestly try is an earlier bedtime. So just something to think about. That's a heck of a lot easier and cheaper than a full evaluation or medication or any of those things. So simple, easy solution might just be even a half hour. It doesn't need to be a full hour. Try it. Worth a try. Next slide. The long-term effects of poor sleep. This is a huge one. Not only does it affect your academic functioning in school for kids, it also increases their chance for being overweight or obese, higher risk of illness, dropping out of high school, drug use, and long-term sleep habits, as we've talked, influence mood, activity, and health throughout one's lifetime. We know from studies of people who work night shifts or that odd shift between 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. that they have one of the highest rates of high cholesterol, obesity, and are most prone to heart attacks. So when we think about our kiddos with less sleep, and we know our kids are not doing the night shift for school, but we can directly see a correlation between poor sleep and poor health. And as parents, we have the opportunity now to have a great influence on our kids. We can't influence them that much when we get to college. We have less influence in high school than we have in middle school. And obviously, in middle school, less than elementary school. But if you are able to positively influence your kids' sleep cycle, you will teach them skills for life, legitimately. You're going to teach them how to eat healthier because when you're tired, you don't always have the energy to cook the healthy foods, things like that. You're more apt to grab the carby crap food. You're more apt to take sugar because it boosts your energy level and your mood, even though you come crashing down. You're more likely to go for caffeine, and caffeine often has with it sugar, right? Like how many people put creamers in their coffee? I do. They'll take the caffeine that's the sugar drinks, such as the pops, um, the energy drinks, things like that. Most of them, their carbs are just off the chart. And so, that's the big correlation between sleep and that overweight obesity stuff is that when you're lacking sleep, you're likely to crave these sugary, carby things to make up for your lack of sleep. And then we see the weight gain and the unhealthy habits. And with that, as you all know, with the obesity comes the, high cholesterol, diabetes, all of these unhealthy things. If you're tired, you're less likely to go for a walk in the afternoon than you are to lay down and take a nap. Research is showing right now that the most unhealthy habit people have is sitting down. And that sitting down is like the new carb, is what they're describing it, in that the more sedentary that we are, the more risk we are for health issues. So when we think about when we're tired, how likely are we to go and do a good workout? How often are teens saying, I'm too tired, can I skip practice? I'm too tired, can I not go to X? And then they spend a half hour sleeping or an hour sleeping, they're sitting doing their homework, and all of that means that they didn't get that exercise, which which increases their chances for health issues. So sleep has a direct effect. Next one. So what hinders sleep? We know the kids should get so much sleep a night, right? Whether it's the 8 to 12 or 8 to 10 or 9 to 12 hours, we know they need that sleep. But what hinders their sleep? One of the biggest things is evening screen use. That blue light arouses the brain and changes the brain's pattern from the melatonin coming into your brain and helping you sleep. And it really starts, honestly, for elementary kids as early as 6 p.m. If they're using screen time after 6 p.m., we're arousing their brain. And I will say probably 75% of parents who come in and we talk about the daily routine end the night with a half hour of TV showing. Cartoon, a show, a quick YouTube video, something like that. And from a parent's aspect, I get it. You need a half hour to like clean up the kitchen from dinner, get things ready for the next day, all of that stuff. And having your kid in front of that screen, one, they're happy, content, not creating another mess that you're going to have to clean at 10 p.m. Two, you're able to get your stuff done quickly and it just becomes a part of routine. Totally get it from a parent aspect. However, psychologist in me looks at it and says, now you've actually given yourself another half hour to try to get to bedtime. Why? Because it's going to take your child's brain that much longer to calm down and shut off. So that half hour cost you a half hour in all reality. So it's really not as helpful as we think or we hope. And there's other things that I would encourage you to do. And some of those things can still be with devices. You could do an audible, let them lay there and listen to a story. You could have them read to you while you're doing things. So you're in the kitchen cleaning and they're reading to you for a half hour. There's a lot of other things we can do without screens. And what I encourage people to do is go, what did your parents do with you so that they could get the kitchen clean? Because most of us didn't grow up with a screen in our face at this young of an age. So, what happened? Like, what was done for us? What could we do? Could your kid go outside and jump on the trampoline? Could your kid, help you organize something? Could your kid help you make the lunch boxes for tomorrow? There's a lot of things that you can do that don't equal screen time that still allow you that time to get the stuff you need done. The other thing is irregular schedules. And again, I'm here to say, I know this is hard. I shared with you in the beginning, I have a daughter who's in competitive dance. We have dance till 8:30 2 nights a week. So our schedule is off. I have another child. That child has activities on Mondays and Wednesdays. So depending on the child, their schedules are different and all of our schedules may off. There might be a time that we go out to dinner because a loved one's in town or something like that. So life happens, I get that. But if you can keep a consistent routine to the best of your abilities, more nights than not, it helps your kids sleep. Okay. Now I'm all about flexibility. I'm human. I've said that. And to the best of our abilities, right? So my middle school kid, we're to bed by 9. So if she's finishing 8:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, guess what? Those aren't shower nights. Shower nights are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or and weekends, don't get me wrong. So that's some of the things that I do to alter her schedule. The other thing I will do is on Tuesday, Thursday nights, I pack her lunch because I know that her coming home at 8:45, trying to pack a lunch and be in bed by 9 is impossible. So I do things to help her out. Um, don't let your kids have late caffeine or sugar. That's a big one. How many times have we taught our kids, like, if you clean your plate, you can have dessert? That's a hard one. I actually strongly discourage dessert after dinner for this very reason, because the sugar builds up their energy level again. And then we're saying, you had dessert an hour ago, now lay down. And their brains don't want to shut off. It's just normal. Bedroom lights, noises, temperature. I've talked about that. And we'll talk about what the ideal temperature is for a room. But bedroom lights are huge. Even if it's a hallway light, that little bit of light can affect their sleep. Noises. Where is their room in relation to the rest of the house? Just literally yesterday morning, I decided to cook a beef roast in the crock pot all day. And so I seared it very early morning. And despite having my vent hood on, I set off the fire alarm at 5:30 a.m. and had two kids coming down to me groggy. And they were like, "What the heck, Mom?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry," as I'm whipping the towel over it like we all do, right? But I affected their sleep. I totally did, so that's reality. I said, go back to sleep. Thankfully, they both were able to. But, depending on how your kids respond to fire alarms, yours might not be able to. So I get it. And the other big thing is overscheduling. Our kids naturally want to do all. But as parents, we have an opportunity to teach them how to budget their time, just in the same way we have an opportunity to teach them how to budget money. And so, what I will say to my kids are, make a list of every activity you'd like to do this year. And then let's pick. And even with my daughter's, competitive dance, she would really love to do every single dance class they offer. And I get that. And I say to her, if we do them all, this is our time commitment. This is our financial commitment. Like, I want you to understand the cost of this. And as we sat down with that, she went, so if I do all the dance classes, then I'm probably not going to be able to do theater. And I said, nope. And she said, and then on Saturdays, when my friends want to have a sleepover Friday night, I can't. And I was like, yep. And so she realized that. And then we sat down at the cost too, and we have that conversation. I realize this isn't about money, but I do think it's important for kids to know the cost of what they want to do so that they're able to realize how money works. And there's no age too young to teach that. I'm going to tell you that right now. But overscheduling is a big one. And I think we as parents get focused on wanting to make sure our kids have this memory of having the best childhood they possibly could, and that we supported them in everything and we honored everything they want to do. And we want them to be able to try everything. And that's incredible. And we then teach our children how not to relax, how not to have downtime, how not to have time where their brains have nothing to do and what it feels like to be bored. Bored is okay. So really, really work on not overscheduling your children. Next slide. Screens are a dual problem. And I know everybody's preaching on screens. Everybody's preaching about standards of kids with social media. Minnesota just passed a law that social media here starting in 2026 will have a warning on it that can't be avoided that talks about the mental health issues as directly associated with social media. Very aware of that. And here's what I would say. It is hard. It is hard as parents of balancing your kid being a normal teenager and putting boundaries in place to protect your kid. It's hard. I get it. But when your kids charge their devices in their rooms, you are setting them up for total failure. I'm going to say it again. When your kids charge their devices in your room, you're setting them up for total failure. Because the blue light delays the melatonin and the hormones that signal to our brains to sleep. And then when they get engaged in content, reading things on TikTok or seeing Snapchats, we have aroused their brain. So, question for later, do you want me to wait? How do I feel about melatonin for kids? Yep, I can answer that right now. 10 years ago, it was a standard. If your kid couldn't sleep, the pediatrician said, oh, give him melatonin. Not a problem. What we are finding in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, as we studied all those kids that we said, sure, go on melatonin, is that taking the supplement, the vitamin melatonin, actually reduces your brain signaling melatonin. So the longer you do it, the less likely your brain is going to stimulate it. So you're actually hindering your brain. So I think melatonin is okay on a super rare occasion. I have concerns about melatonin being used on a regular basis because we're hindering our brain from doing their job. So it's hard, and again, every child is different. I'm making blanket statements. If your pediatrician has said yes to melatonin, I'm not a pediatrician. Let me make that abundantly clear. But I will tell you what the research says, and that says that taking the supplement decreases your brain from doing it naturally. So that's my concern. I think the other questions are for our audience, so definitely engage if you would like to. And so going back to this, if your child's charging their phone in their room, and I hear it, I hear the kids all the time saying, but my phone is my alarm clock and my parent wants me to wake myself up. You know what? Go to Target, go to Walmart, go to Amazon, wherever you buy things, and get a cheap $10 alarm clock and teach your child how to use it. We used them, they worked for us. I know it's annoying sound, but we can do it. Next slide. Okay, so what are some practical fixes? Your kid says they need their device, things like that. I think if you are able to give a 60-minute screen curfew, which means TVs, iPads, phones, computers, like literally any device with a screen, 60 minutes off before bed is key. If you can do 30 minutes, I'm with you. But 60 minutes is key. If you're able to do 60 minutes, you're rocking it as a parent. Give yourself a giant high 10. As I've made abundantly clear, charge those devices outside of the bedroom. And then also in the evening, if we're able to use warm lighting versus bright lighting, that signals to our bodies to rest. So some of the things that I do is after we're done with dinner, I turn on lower lights in our kitchen, things like that, where we're winding down so that everybody's brain is kind of signaling that we're going to sleep. Even when we're brushing our teeth, I use the light in the shower versus the big bright, lights. I call them the makeup lights, but the really bright lights above your vanity. Um, I will stick with a shower light or the one over the toilet or whatever, so that we're signaling to our brain to slow down. In my kids' rooms, they both have like a big light in the center of their room, and we don't turn those on at night. We might turn on a lamp or a closet light or something like that. Because the second we do those bright lights, our brain's like, hello, good morning, I'm awake. And then it's harder to get them to sleep. And as I shared, I have a child who has always struggled with sleep. And I think, you know what? I think I actually forgot this. So I will tell you, before I was a parent, I was a sleep nut. And that means that I was really rigid about how kids slept. I was like, kids can never be in your bed. Kids must always sleep in their room. Kids must, okay? And then I got my karma and I got a sleeper that doesn't sleep. And by that I mean, as an infant, I would rock and rock and rock. I mean, she would be dead asleep. You could lift her arm, it would drop. You could kiss her on the cheek, she had no reaction. Like she was sound asleep. And then you daintily carry them over to the crib. I set her down the most gentle way I possibly could. Like she was the most fragile porcelain in my house. And the butter alarm would go off. I mean, it was to the point that my mother-in-law didn't believe me and she was staying one night and I had her hang out in the room while I was putting my daughter to sleep. And she was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yes, come on. You had 3 kids. Humor me. How do I fix this problem? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, thanks. I was counting on you. Not many daughter-in-laws are willing to take advice from their mother-in-law. And here I was, and she couldn't even give it to me. So anyway, I love my mother-in-law. Don't get me wrong. But it is hard. It is hard. It is not easy. And so these are some tricks that I have not only learned personally from my hard sleeper, but also learning as a psychologist and reading the research and understanding how to help you all. So again, I come to you as a real mom who struggled with this myself. And that's probably why I'm so passionate about it. Is to try to like deem myself out of my karma. I don't know. Next one. Okay, so what is sleep hygiene? What is this? Like we all know personal hygiene, right? We shower, we change our clothes, we wear deodorant, we brush our teeth, we do all those wonderful things. And the first thing we ask you about if we think you're depressed is how are you doing with your personal hygiene, right? Well, this goes with sleep hygiene as well. And sleep hygiene is just as important as your personal hygiene. So, what is your sleep hygiene? Do you have regular bed and awake times? And you know what? I honestly would love you to have the same sleep and awake time on the weekends, dare I say it, as the weekdays. So, don't shut off on me. Don't give up. If that's not something you're able to fix, that's okay. But I'm here to give you all the wisdom, and then you decide what's workable and what are you going to throw in the garbage and forget. You get to decide that. So, sleep hygiene is key. Calming pre-bedtime routine, like we just talked about on the last slide, making sure that you signal to your brain good night. And those signals are what tells the melatonin like, come in here, shut me down. So that's huge. Okay. Do we have the same routine? Do we Around the same time, brush our teeth, wash our face, go to the bathroom for the last time, put on our pajamas. Do we have comfy pajamas that feel good to sleep in? Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm hitting like perimenopause, menopause, if I'm honest, but I'm going to say perimenopause because I'm not ready to be honest. But I have fallen in love with washable silk because no matter what temperature I am when I'm falling asleep, it works. Um, Meanwhile, I have one kid who, no matter what season of it is, he's in like his fuzzy, fleecy everything. And I have another sleeper that I'm like, I really hope there's not a fire because you have like nothing on. So everybody's different. I get it. And my kids would be mortified that I just said that. So let's not tell them. But it's truth. So here's what I would say to you. Everybody has their own way of sleeping, clothes that are comfortable. Wear what is comfortable. Encourage your children to wear what's comfortable. Figure out what kind of sheets they like. My fuzzy fleece kid thankfully wants like the thin cotton sheets, and my barely wearing anything child wants her flannel sheets all night long, all summer long, all year long. That's it. And as a kid, I actually, when knit sheets came out, I was like a huge fan for the majority of my life. I found knit extra long sheets to even take to college, which was a miracle and a half. So everybody has their own bedding that works for them. Find the right bedding. The joy of Amazon and the world of access to China is that we can find any type of sheets, any type of bedding that we want, and we can try them all. Okay. And if you hate it when you open that package, you can return it, which is lovely. So find the right bedding, find the right mattress. You would be surprised how many people are sleeping on a mattress that's 20 years old. When you think of that just from a germ aspect of 20 years of, skin debris, sweat, hair, animals, if you're like me, because my dogs sleep with me, that's a lot. And so find the right mattress for your kids, for you. Don't be afraid to try them. Don't be afraid to research. The cool thing is now there's so many options, and most of them get shipped to you in a box, which is amazing. So find the right bedding. That's awesome. If your kid needs more space and you're able to fit a full size or a queen size into their room, please do. If your kid sleeps in one spot and a twin is good, don't get hung up on upgrading their bed. If their bed is working for them, leave it alone. That's what I would say. Okay. And then the other thing, if I haven't said it enough, which I think I probably have, is limiting late caffeine and screens. And then a cool, dark bedroom is key. So we know that the temperature that we want a room to be is roughly 70 degrees. And so cooler, the better. And right now, as we've had this cool weather, I will crack windows open in their rooms after they go to sleep so they don't see me do it because they're like, it's too cold. But I will tell you that in doing that, they sleep so much better and they don't mysteriously appear in my bed. So I love it. And then I quickly crank it closed before they wake up because I want the room to warm up to help them wake up. So those are just some things to do. I think the other thing is if we can help our kids read before bed, it's huge. Reading is actually hypnotic in that the motion of reading, the back and forth, makes our brains tired. Now, when they're reading, I always encourage you not to read their favorite exciting book. So I am rereading Harry Potter. I probably would not pull out a Harry Potter right now because I get so into them and I get excited. Next thing I know, it's 2 a.m. and I screwed myself. So, something slightly interesting, but not their most favorite book. That's what I would say. And I think teaching and educating teenagers, especially about the power of sleep and how much sleep will help them, because a lot of our kiddos are perfectionists and want to do awesome in school. And their whole reasoning for staying up late is to get that paper or turn in that assignment just perfect. And when we can teach them that the best way to study for a test is to get a good night's sleep and model that for them, and then they come home with their A's that they're jonesing for because they got a good night's sleep, that's phenomenal. I will tell you another thing that I teach my kiddos that have test anxiety. Here's just an anecdotal side note. Is I was taught this when I was in high school, is I teach them to put their notes under their pillow. And they look at me like I have five heads and I've lost it and I'm trying to be a tarot card reader. I won't lie. But I explain to them, look, it is totally anecdotal. It doesn't mean anything. I firmly know that your notes are not going to form by osmosis into your brain. Like, I get it. But it creates a comfort for you as you sleep that you've done enough studying. And it gives you a reassurance that you've got this. So it's a confidence booster. That's all it is to feel like, oh, my brain knows this information. If it sleeps next to my brain, I'm okay. Now, I don't want them sleeping with 10 textbooks under their pillow. Let me make that clear. That is not comfortable. That goes back to having a comfortable bed. But if they have 3 sheets of note paper or print off their notes from their computer and stick it under there, um, they're going to feel good about it. So there's just kind of my anecdotal. Next screen. So what are some sample bed routines? I've already talked with you a little bit about this of some things that you put in it, which you all naturally know because we all do it. But I would say 45 minutes before bedtime with little kids, it's quiet play. And then for everybody, it's low lights, as we talked about. It's 20 minutes before bed of bathing, brushing teeth, pajamas, things like that. If your kid takes a shower at night, that's the time to do it. Winding down, telling our brain it's time to sleep. And then 10 to 15 minutes of your kids little shared reading, tuck in bed. If your kid's older, this is also a great time to just hang out in their room and chat. Keep it down. I find that bedtime is the time that I get the most information on my kids. So if your kid is a shut off kid, or your kid's not telling you a lot about what's going on at school with their friends, hit bedtime. The other favorite time is car time. Take away the device because they will tell you everything in their life during the car if they don't have a screen in their face. So there's my 2 hints of getting into your child's world. But that's huge. And then at 0 minutes, obviously, any type of device, reading, book, or otherwise are away. Okay. And then, like I said, with younger kids, we want a lot more structure and earlier bedtime. With teens, we want to teach them their circadian rhythm and to kind of understand what their bedtime needs so that they have consistent bedtime and consistent wake time. Next one. How do I begin? Here's where you're going to pull out your worksheet. Pick one change, one thing. I'm not asking you to do everything I gave to you. That's unrealistic, and your kids will kill you if you leave this presentation and you do everything I asked of you. They will make sure that you will never be able to attend another presentation, and they will probably find me and Google review me. So please don't do that. What I'm asking instead is pick one thing that you think is practical and workable in your home. I'll share with you an example. I have a mom who is a nighttime nurse, and she would take away screen time. And it didn't work for her because she needed a half hour of screen time so that she could have a half hour power nap before she went in from 7 p to 7 a. So don't take that one if that's not going to work for you. Maybe it's charging devices out of the room. Maybe it's a fixed bedtime. Pick one thing, only one thing, no overachievers allowed, and try it for 7 days, even weekends. Okay? Next one. Here's my ploy to teachers, and you all can share this with your teachers. They can help too. Avoid heavy tests in that first period, giving children at least 30 minutes to adjust to school before standardized testing. That's a big one. If you want good results and you want good standards, that's how you're going to get it. Consider homework timing amongst the classes. So if you have a big paper you're going to expect or a big project, check with the other staff. When are they going to have kids turn things in so that kids aren't cramming 6 big projects into 3 days? And then teach these tips to kids in class, especially teenagers. If you can teach one health tip or sleep tip in class, that's powerful. And you're supporting parents who are saying the same thing. And we know that the average person needs to hear something 40 times to learn it. So if teachers are saying it, staff's saying it, parents are saying it, if we can get TikTok influencers to say it, we've got it. Next one. Okay, I hear this all the time. I've tried all those things, Dr. Cohen, and nothing works. Right. I get it. I'm not downplaying and I'm not saying you're wrong. But sometimes we need to get the buy-in. And by that, I mean, maybe you're looking at your worksheet right now and going, I don't know which one to start. So you sit down with your kiddo and say, look, I learned all these great things of how we can improve your sleep. Which one do you think we can do? And you know what? If your kid believes they can do it, they're going to do it. So ask them which one we can do. Maybe you need to shorten the wind down time. Maybe you need to remove screens earlier. Maybe you need to reduce evening sugar. But sit with your kid, help them buy in by letting them be part of the decision. Again, they don't get to decide, we're not doing any of them, but let them decide which one they're willing to do. And then that might be your ticket, and they did your homework for you, which helps. Next slide. Okay. Here's a big one. Our high schoolers love to nap right after school, right? So shorten the naps. Don't let them sleep for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Keep the naps to 15 to 30 minutes. We know the 15 to 30-minute power nap helps. Anything over that is going to make you lethargic and really screw up your sleep cycle. If you're like me, that even a 15 to 30-minute nap is not a power nap, it sets you to sleep mode right away, remove the naps. Go for a walk instead to arouse the brain during the day, and so that your melatonin can seep in at night and do its work. If your child is disruptive when they're sleeping, I want to make it abundantly clear. If you've got a child who's snoring, gasping, pausing in their breath, go see the pediatrician ASAP, get off this Zoom, and get scheduled. Like, it's not even optional in my world. If you have excessive daytime sleepiness that's gone on for months on end, we need to see the pediatrician. If we get night wakings, that we've got night walkers, things like that, go see the pediatrician. There's a lot of other things that it can be, and it's not necessarily mental health or sleep or anything you're doing as a parent. Get to the bottom of it. Sleep studies are good, they're helpful. I believe in them. So go see your pediatrician. Next one. Okay, so as we talk about small environmental wins, you can do blackout shades, the cool room, white noise, reserving bed only for sleep. So don't sit there and play games in the bed, don't look at devices in the bed, things like that. Teaching and training the brain that bed is for sleep. Next one. Realistic tech rules. I'm with you, friends. Family charging station outside of the bedroom. If parents can model this, this is awesome. As we were preparing for this, I shared that my husband does charge his devices with the family. I do charge mine in my room, one, because of my profession, and two, because I have an elderly father that if something happens in the night, I need to be reachable. Our family knows that I'm the reachable one. So if anybody on the other side of our families needs something in the middle of the night, I'm the one you're going to text or call. So we've made that abundantly clear. And then we really only have one device in our room and none in our children. We don't have TVs in our kids' rooms, things like that, because I don't want anything. And we all know, I'm sure you know too, that that device can light up at any time. And so your kids charging their device in their room, it will light up when there's a notification. Even if they have the do not disturb, they still magically appear. And so I really, 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 really strongly encourage you not to charge any devices in a bedroom. Um, Setting the device on do not disturb at night. You can set it to a schedule, and you can also set devices to have do not disturb at night with exception to whatever context. So do that too if you need to. And then I love trade-offs. We earn screen time with reading time. We earn screen time with cleaning up time, things like that. Screen time is a privilege. It's not a right. So teaching our kids healthy screen habits now leads to healthy screen habits as adults. And then negotiating rules with teens, like which rule can you do? Which one are we not ready to face yet? And move your way up. And then replacing that nagging with shared action. So one of the things that I have said to my daughter is, if you want me to lay with you at night, you need to be in bed by 8:30 or 9, depending on if you have dance. If you want to put yourself to bed, you can stay up till 9:30. We're not in a power struggle. I'm here for you. But if you want my involvement, then I need you in bed by this time so I can get to bed at my time. So I'm modeling that and I make it collaborative. This is a conversation, not a demand. Next one. How important is consistency? Probably the most important thing we're going to talk about today. Consistency is key. So by that, I mean, it stabilizes the circadian rhythm. It teaches our melatonin to come into our brain and tells our body to slow down. It creates routine. It makes it easier to get back to routine. Okay, so it's key. That's what I will tell you. Next one. Okay, so I'm going to share an experience. I had a patient who was sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night for 4 years. They became borderline diabetic, found themselves eating at night, sugary foods, anger issues. It led to divorce, their anger issues. They lost 2 jobs in a matter of 6 months because of the anger stuff, and admitted to me that they were using their phone to go to sleep, and most nights, like honestly, I think it was like 6 nights a week, they were playing video games till 1 or 2 a.m. I literally thought, I'm going to try something because they weren't willing to make a lot of other changes in their lives. But I said, I want you to go to bed at 11 p.m. with no device and read to sleep something semi boring. No devices in your bedroom. I want a cool room, and you wake at 7 a.m. And I said, I only want you to do this for 14 days and then come back to me. And so within 2 weeks, the patient said they felt calmer, happier, more motivated for work. They had actually gotten like an accolade from their boss, which was huge. And in 6 months, this person returned to college, which is something they'd wanted to do for 15 years. They'd lost 15 pounds. They were overweight. And the doctor was shocked because they were no longer pre-diabetic. They were the first one in their family in years to not have diabetes. Just literally, it was this change. This change opened us. After 6 months, we were able to start to do so much other work that we needed to do mentally because they were getting better sleep. It was a simple change, right? Like we all look and go, duh. But it was huge for that person and life changing. So, and I could tell you story after story. I could literally sit on here for another hour for that. Next one. Sleeping myths. This is a big one. I love my little Harry Potter baby. Kids can catch up on weekends. They can't. Screen filters doing that blue light filter, the blue light glasses solves everything. It doesn't. They can put their phone on do not disturb and it won't disrupt their sleep. I shared with you it will. Listening to music or audible on devices helps with sleep. It does not. It keeps us out of REM. Have it on, set it to a timer for 15 minutes and it's over. Teens need to nap because they have so much homework at night. Nope, napping actually hinders them from doing their homework. My kid won't text at night. I'm here to scream liar, liar, pants on fire on that. They will. The screen goes off and their friend texts them. They will wake up at 1 and text their friends. I can set up the rules for my kids, but I don't need to follow them. I'm here to call bullshit on that too. If you are setting your kids up for that, you need to model it, right? Our kids are as good as we are. Next one. My question to you is one change can you implement this week? How can you improve the system update for your brain? Let's get started. One thing, only one thing, friends. Next. Okay. 3 takeaways I hope you got. Prioritize regular sleep. Start only one change tonight. And small, consistent habits are far better than perfection. Next. Questions and answers. We started late, so I'm running late with you all. What questions can I answer? My son has autism, ADHD. Oh, let me start up. Pick one thing. Okay, what medication do I prefer to help with sleep? Well, I'm not a pediatrician. I can't recommend medications. I have to defer to your pediatrician on medication recommendations. I recommend them learning the natural way of sleeping, which is building their own melatonin. So learning how to wind down their bodies, signal to their bodies to sleep. I know it's hard. I have a child with ADHD as well, so I get that. Sleepy time music, I am okay. I'm hesitant on YouTube because it has a video component. I much rather would have it like on iTunes or Amazon Music, something like that, that doesn't have a video component, so we don't have a blue screen with it. I will be honest with you, we have the Alexa Kid devices in our kids' rooms, and we will listen to a story on that, or we will listen to bedtime music on that to wind down. So I would do that, or a smart speaker, like I think Jenny said. Those are better than an actual device. iPads, um, the Amazon Kindle, any of those have a screen component, and that blue light arouses the brain. So those kind of things are great. And I totally hear you with the autism, the ADHD, and the sleep issues. As you know, is symptomatic of it. I completely get it as a psychologist and as a parent. And I think we have even more obligation with our kiddos that are neurodivergent to teach them these healthy sleep habits, because I can't tell you how many neurodivergent adults have the worst sleep in the world. Okay. So we now have an opportunity to influence in an awesome direction. And I am just encouraging you from one mama to another to do that to the best of your abilities. Again, not perfection, change one thing, and maybe even talking to your son about, hey, these are some of the little things that I learned today. Which one do you think we could do? Not, do you want to do one? Because they're going to say no, right? They like their creatures of habit. But what's one thing that you think we could do together? How can I help you with this? And my guess is they'll engage. It's hard, you know. Uh, I have a kid that literally got a gift card for Amazon for their birthday and bought like the whole charger system for their room. And I said, "This looks great in the kitchen." And they're like, "I bought it for myself." Too bad. I love you. And we're charging at night. What do I think about taking taurine at night? Um, I know a lot of adults who do. I know a lot of adults who take magnesium at night, things like that. I think as adults, like we can do what we need to do. I also know that, as our body's changing and evolving, especially like I said, perimenopause, things like that, we do know that magnesium drops dramatically. And other nutrients do too. As adults, that's okay. But as children, I would be very concerned about giving your child something because we truly want to teach their brains the power of melatonin. But fair. Any other questions I can answer?
Oh, I had a question earlier. So what's your
Yes.
ideal amount of awake time before school, right? Because you're trying to maximize sleep, but you're also trying
Yeah.
to get
Oh, that's
them
a hard
successful
one.
for school.
Sure. That's a hard one. I think it's really dependent on your kid and your routine. I have a kiddo who can get ready like that. And I have a kiddo who is very easily distracted because they haven't had their stimulant medication yet. And it takes that child twice as long as the other child to get ready. So I think it's really kid dependent and yourself. Like, are you getting yourself ready? Are you doing lunches in the morning? Like, what are you doing too? So it's really dependent. How long is your commute? Is your kid taking the bus? What time do they have to be at the bus? Do you have dogs that you're caring for if you're like me? So it's really dependent. And I think you really determine bedtime based on awake time. That's what I would say. Whatever time your kid has to wake up, then do the math backwards to figure out what time is probably best for bed. That's what I would say. Any other questions I can answer? What's generally considered overscheduled? Oof, that's also a kid by kid. Is your kid an introverted kid who needs a lot of downtime and quiet time? I think, Loretta, you were the one that mentioned the ADHD and autism. Um, oh, I'm hearing no, yes. Maybe if your kid needs that downtime, I know with kids with social um, nuances and things like that that come with being neurodivergent, they need more quiet time to just kind of recoup after an intense day of school and lots of socializing. Um, And so then I would say even less activities for them. If your kid is a super social, outgoing extrovert, then they probably can have more on their schedule than your introverted. But it's different. And also consider yourself. How much driving, how much are you comfortable in doing? Are you an introverted person who needs more downtime and scheduling activities till 8:30 at night is too much for you? It's okay to say no. It's okay to teach your kid to balance everybody's needs in the family. There's nothing wrong with that. That's learning how to live in community, that's learning how to think for others. So it's really dependent on the child and what your child needs. And I would say it also builds up with age. The amount of activities that I was allowing in elementary school versus middle school versus high school is different. Um, and in high school, we're also trying to balance between, having a strong resume maybe for college or a job. And so we want more activities so we can show diversity and ability and able to juggle all the things. And in elementary school, we want them to learn how to relax and self care and build social skills. So, we're going to gear activities more towards those things. So it's really just dependent on your child and what your child needs. And treat each of your children as their own human. That's what I would say. It's not a one size fits all for a family or for a kid. Any other questions I can answer? No. Thank you all for your time. I hope that you were able to find one thing that you're able to take home and implement in your home to make your space a calmer, more peaceful evening, which also helps you as you are heading towards your sleep hygiene and bedtime. So, thank you for your time today. I wish you all nothing but success. And if you want to go to all the research I look at regularly and use, it's all right here in the slides. It's no hidden secret. Here's some great research articles to understand. Maybe your kid is more of a science-based kid and you can reference this with them. If you bring science to them and they think you're just trying to sound smart, don't bring it to them. But this is here to help you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And for anyone who RSVP, you are getting a copy of this deck, you're getting a copy of the handouts. This is something that I know Jenny and I and other campus directors will be sharing afterwards with families. I have several families in mind that I'm going to remind them that this webinar took place. And if you do have continued questions, reach out to Dr. Cohen. Or reach out, to Jenny and I or your campus director, and we can answer some of those. One of the reasons why this is a really nice match for us to talk about, other than we are not experts on sleep, but at Brightmont Academy, we're dealing with students all different, learning needs. Sleep is something that we deal with constantly. We hear it on our intake phone calls. My child doesn't sleep. But some things about us, we start here at Brightmont, we do tutoring and we go all the way to full-time schooling through 12th grade. So we're nationally accredited. We follow whatever state standards you're in. We also even work with other states if there's no Brightmont near you. But one thing that's really nice about us is that we have a flexible schedule. So if you tell us that your child does not sleep and they have a hard time getting up at 8:30 in the morning, we'll say, well, can you do the afternoons?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried that? And sometimes and we're not talking, this is not, for everyone, but there are children who really, we want to get them at their best time of the day. So that's something we can work with families, whether they're part-time or full-time. Why don't you come in the afternoon? Just like you were saying, don't take the standardized test first thing in the morning. Like, why are you going to come, and you're going to come at your worst time. Come if your child is medicated. Sometimes we need time for the medications to kind of kick in. So we also do shortened days. So some of these things that you're talking about where children are feeling like overscheduled, they're not really going to be overscheduled here. They're going to be able to fit it naturally into their day, which eases the life of the parents, but also eases, the students' load. So a lot of anxiety, different things sometimes could just even be lessened just by taking some classes off your plate or having a shortened day. So again, we do all those things on that slide. Tutoring, skill building is something just building confidence. So if your child is like struggling, or you want to get them accelerated in something, that's like a personalized program that we work on, to kind of fill in learning gaps. So you can go, I think there's another slide. Is there? And this is just the contact information. So again, Brightmont Academy, we're growing, but we're over 20 campuses right now. We're now officially in 9 states. I love to hear that you also work nationally. So that's really important. So anyone can reach out to you. And you can read more about Dr. Cohen on her website, her expertise. If she can't answer a question, I'm sure she has lots of great resources, as do we. So, all the campus directors, we like to work as a team with therapists, different professionals. So we love to help get you in touch with the right person, answer your questions. And if you have any further questions, again, you can reach out to us. You can reach out to the 888 number, which I think we're putting in the chat. And we do this monthly webinars. They're available, you can watch them anytime. We love bringing in experts like this. And Jenny, is there anything you want to add to this before we sign off for today?
No, I just think this topic is so appropriate at this time of the year. I have a little kid who struggled with sleep, and personally, I have always struggled with sleep. And I think just this recognition that if we can prioritize sleep over everything else becomes easier. And I think Dr. Hansen Cohen really did a good job of sharing, don't try to do everything, one thing at a time. Have a conversation with your kid. What's the one thing we can pick together? In the chat, the example of listening to YouTube music. Well, let's just get off that screen. We can do that with a smart speaker. We can do that with little kids. You can do it with a Tony, or there's other listening devices you can use. So I think this idea that we start small and we build on it is so important. And I think from a Brightmont Academy perspective, we work with tons of kids with sleep issues, whether it's, and those are the issues that sometimes the routine is not going to fix. It's a medical issue. It's sleep apnea, it's adenoids, it's hypersomnia, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome. So when you're dealing with those very kind of serious medical issues, Brightmont is often a partner in education for kids who are working through medication, working through procedures, working through those things. So I think you both have done a wonderful job sharing the things that we can do, but just remembering one day at a time, one night at a time, and what's the one thing you can do is so important.
Yeah. So I think we'll end today. We're all still available, as we said. So, you could jot down our numbers, but all this will be sent to you. So you'll have our information. And I look forward to seeing more of you at our next webinar. And I hope you got a lot out of this. I even walking away with tips because you feel like you've done it all. And then it's like, you haven't done it all. So this was really great. And we do appreciate